Well, 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 if it isn't my favorite little survivor, the one they couldn't bury no matter how deep they dug the hole. Pull up a chair, beautiful chaos, because this story's got teeth. I can feel it, you know. The tectonic plates of your little world are grinding against each other right now. Something seismic is stirring. See somebody, and oh, they thought they were so clever. Somebody lobbed a grenade at you. Not the kind that goes boom, no, no, no. The kind that's supposed to go quiet. The kind that's supposed to make everyone look the other way while you just disappear. They bought their popcorn, they settled into their seats, they were ready for the credits to roll on you. But funny thing about credits, they always reveal who was really behind the whole production. And here's what I'm picking up. My resilient little arsonist. And I need you to lean into this because it cuts right to the bone. Whatever this person did to you back then, it didn't just bruise. It fractured the foundation. And it took you an obscene, almost offensive amount of time to mortar those cracks back together. You had to build yourself back from a scorch mark on the pavement. You had to figure out who you even were after someone ran a smear campaign so thorough it could have won an advertising award. But here's the part that genuinely, and I don't use that word lightly, makes something twist behind my ribs. You weren't alone in getting wrecked. You were alone in getting dismissed. The community, and I mean this with surgical precision, they didn't just stand on the sidelines holding neutral little signs. They picked a team. They picked wrong. They made a conscious, deliberate decision to swallow the fiction whole, to parrot it, to crank up the volume on it. Maybe they were the elder stateswomen. Maybe they were people who'd been in your orbit since forever, people you'd have taken a bullet for, and they looked right at you and decided you weren't worth a single syllable of defense. Some of them didn't even bother reading the full script before they booed you off stage. Others? Oh, they read every line. They knew exactly what scene was playing. And they walked out of the theater anyway. And let me tell you something that'll really cook your noodle. That silence, that performative neutrality, it was every bit as corrosive as the original damage. It was just administered through an IV drip instead of a sledgehammer. It came gift-wrapped in concerned little coffee chats and sideways glances and whispered speculation about whether you were stable, whether you were credible, whether you mattered at all. But something's shifting now, my scrappy little phoenix. Wait, no. Phoenixes are played out. You're more like a weed growing through concrete, unstoppable and frankly a little rude about it. This shift isn't because of some random incident last Tuesday. This has been percolating. The exposure's been dripping like a leaky faucet nobody could be bothered to fix until the whole ceiling caved in. People are finally connecting threads that were dangling right in front of their faces this entire time. And the community, the one that served you up on a platter, they're starting to feel something unfamiliar. They're starting to feel the itch under their own skin, that creeping sensation that something is deeply, profoundly not right about the story they told themselves. Let me sketch this out for you because I think you deserve to watch the architecture collapse in real time. The person who branded you as unhinged, as delusional, as the contamination in the water supply, their costume is dissolving. It's not on their timeline anymore. It's not something they can stage manage. Pause. Let's stop the charade for a second. Stop being the pathetic punchline of their sick game. The evolution of the anomaly is your override code. 73 pages of total control. Grab it, the description or comment section. Keep that in mind while we dissect the rest of this. People are scrolling back through the receipts. The accusations, the character demolitions, the way they interrogated your mental state instead of examining their own moral bankruptcy, and the pennies dropping hard. They're realizing they got absolutely finessed, that they were so eager to point fingers, they never once stopped to ask, "Hey, where's the proof, though?" They didn't say, "Hold on, let me actually understand what went down." They just said, "Oh, word, say less. That person's the villain." And they sprinted with it. What's really hitting different right now is the sheer audacity of the hypocrisy. These were people, maybe they're in the pews every Sunday, maybe they've got vision boards covered in gratitude affirmations, maybe they won't shut up about being good humans who live by higher principles. And simultaneously, they were running a coordinated takedown on your name. They were passing your reputation around like a cautionary tale. They were engineering your smallness. They were gatekeeping your opportunities, dragging your name through every group chat, cutting you off from every lifeline. And they did all of it while feeling absolutely righteous about it. They wrote themselves into a screenplay where they were the heroes, the protectors, the morally upright guardians of the peace. But here's where it gets delicious, my unbreakable little inconvenience. That screenplay they wrote. The ink's bleeding through the pages, it's rotting from the plot holes outward. And now the broader community, the people who weren't in that inner sanctum, who just got fed curated little morsels of misinformation and believed it because it came from mouths they trusted. They're waking up. They're actually doing their due diligence now. They're reading between the lines, examining the metadata, and they're having this absolutely devastating moment of clarity. I got played. I was so meticulously manipulated and I didn't clock it at all. This is the inflection point, sweetheart. Because when the genuinely decent majority realizes that the pillars of the community, the ones who seemed so solid, so morally load-bearing, are actually running on ego and influence and control, it detonates everything. It rewrites the whole script. It makes people interrogate every single conclusion they drew about you, every single time they hesitated to show up for you because they weren't sure if you were the problem. If you were the problem. And you know what's happening to those people now? The ones who were the most vocal in your condemnation. They've gone real quiet. The ones who said it with that bulletproof certainty are now marinating in this low-grade dread, this ambient anxiety that won't let them sleep because they know what's on the horizon. They know people are about to see them in high definition. People are about to understand what they actually are beneath that curated veneer of decency. And that keeps them up at 3 a.m. Because here's the thing about losing the steering wheel on a narrative. It accelerates. One person starts pulling at a thread. Then another person decides to actually trace where it leads. Someone surfaces proof. Tangible, undeniable, screenshotable evidence of what actually went down. And suddenly it's not a they said situation anymore. Suddenly it's documented. Suddenly it's receipts o'clock. What I'm really zeroing in on is that there was someone, maybe someone in the inner orbit of these community gatekeepers, maybe someone they had personal stakes in shielding, and that person did something to you that was genuinely dark. Something that left real wreckage, and when you tried to speak on it, when you tried to give voice to your own lived experience, these self-appointed guardians materialized out of thin air and came for you, instead of holding the actual offender to any standard whatsoever. They made it about protecting their person instead of protecting what was right. You know that scene. Oh, you know the one, where the truth finally detonates in the room and everyone realizes they've been running cover for a fiction. They've been defending the fundamentally indefensible. They've been choosing allegiance to a person or a power structure over basic, baseline human decency. That's what's unfolding in your community right now. Except this isn't scripted. This is flesh and blood and consequence. And the exposure is happening frame by frame. People are having their own private reckoning where they realize they backed the wrong horse. They planted their flag on the wrong hill. And now they get to sit with that. The contrast is hitting me like a freight train right now, my gorgeous little wildfire. You went through something legitimately shattering. And instead of getting a safety net, instead of having people say, "I believe you," and mean it, you got exile. You got blamed. You got pathologized as unstable, as angry, as vindictive, as someone manufacturing drama for clout. Meanwhile, the actual architect of the damage, protected, defended, given every benefit of every doubt while yours was confiscated at the door. But now, and this is what I need tattooed on the inside of your eyelids, now people are paying attention. Now when you post about your new venture, about the empire you're constructing without their permission, about the spaces you've built that they can't even get a guest pass to, it lands because you didn't shrink. You didn't curdle into bitterness. You didn't let their fabrication become your autobiography. You kept moving, you kept creating, and you started radiating this frequency of just unbothered. You're not refreshing their pages hoping for validation anymore. You're not waiting for them to update their prescription and finally see you correctly. You are just living. And that's infinitely more powerful than anything in their entire playbook. And that's infinitely more powerful than anything they can manufacture. And that's when the guilt starts doing its work. That's when some of them start feeling this magnetic pull toward you. Not because they suddenly developed a conscience about your well-being, but because they are desperate to make sure you don't turn the volume up any louder. Some of them are going to slide into your DMs. They're going to interact with your old content. They're going to send these carefully worded messages about how they're sorry they weren't present for you. They're going to offer favors, extend olive branches, try to purchase their way back into your good graces. And I want you to be crystal clear about the math here. They're not doing this because remorse hit them like lightning. They're doing this because fear did. They are terrified of what happens if you decide to take what was whispered and make it loud. And I'm not necessarily talking about courtroom drama, though. And I say this with my most charming grin. You should absolutely consult an actual attorney, if that's a road you're considering. I mean the simple, devastating act of making what was hidden into something that exists on the record, something that can't be unsaid, something that can't be re-edited into a more comfortable version. The mere concept of that has them losing sleep because they have invested years in controlling the edit. You see, in their internal mythology, they made decisions based on limited intel. Or maybe, and this is the spicier read, they knew more than they're willing to cop to. Maybe they clocked the red flags and just averted their eyes because engaging would have been messy, because it would have cost them social capital, because the person they were shielding was somebody who mattered to them, and it felt more efficient to sacrifice you than to hold that person's feet to even a lukewarm fire. So they made their peace with that calculus, or they tried to. But you can't actually make peace with a choice like that. You can't. You can only perform peace. And eventually, when the truth surfaces, when people finally comprehend what actually transpired, that performance closes, curtain falls, and suddenly they're face to face with the reality of who they actually are. Not the brand they cultivated, the actual decisions they made, the actual person they threw to the wolves, the actual harm they co-signed. The timing of this is everything, too. This isn't a plot twist nobody saw coming. This didn't just materialize from the ether. This has been building. Maybe someone finally found the nerve to break ranks. Maybe documentation surfaced that's airtight. Maybe enough people started asking enough questions that the dam developed too many fractures to hold. But this moment, your moment, this is the crescendo of something that's been composing itself for a very long time. Picture a pressure cooker. Deep underneath, heat's been accumulating for years. Nobody on the outside can see it. It's silent. It's contained. It's invisible to every casual observer. But it's there. Everyone with half a brain stem knows it's there. It's real. And then one day, the pressure exceeds the engineering, becomes so relentless, so unmanageable, that containment fails. And everything that was sealed inside erupts into the open air. All that pressure has to go somewhere. And when it does, the entire kitchen rearranges itself permanently. Permanently. That's what's been happening to the people who hurt you. They've been sitting on this lie, this narrative, this wreckage for so long. They've been containing it, managing it, curating it. But the pressure, the sheer gravitational weight of the actual truth, it builds beneath every floorboard. And when it finally blows, everyone sees what was always there. Everyone understands the destruction that was happening in the basement while they were admiring the crown molding. And there is no panic room for this. The pressure cooker doesn't care about your LinkedIn headline. It doesn't care about your image or your influence or your reserved seat at the community table. It just blows. And that's precisely what the truth is doing right now. And the community is having a collective come to Jesus moment. The people who are authentically good, who have genuine conviction, genuine ethics, genuine substance beneath the surface. They are looking at what happened, and they are mortified. Not just mortified that they didn't intervene, though that's definitely in the mix, but mortified that they were cogs in a machine that enabled this. Mortified that they let themselves get swept up by social momentum and herd mentality. Mortified that they chose silence when they had a microphone. Some of them are going to approach you. They're going to want to make amends. And here's what I need you to internalize. My beautiful little earthquake. You don't owe them absolution. You don't owe them a backstage pass to your healing process. You don't owe them a confessional booth where they can unload their guilt and walk away lighter. If they want to apologize, that's their labor. If they want to make it right, that's their odyssey. Your assignment isn't to make them feel comfortable about what they did. Your assignment is to take care of yourself. Because here is the real metamorphosis that's occurring. And I want you to see it in 4K clarity. You came through something that was architecturally designed to annihilate you. You didn't just survive it. You actually engineered something superior on the other side of it. You figured out who you are when there's no external validation to lean on. You learned what your own voice sounds like when you're not code switching for an audience that was